jail in Johnson County.
Yes, that was fun.
It was a sort of Zoom and sort of not Zoom. It was a strange experience.
All right. Let's see if we're all ready to go. Looks like it. All right, let's be on the record in case number 2019-CR1211, captions State of Kansas versus Lester Smith. Would the parties announce their appearances, please?
May it please the court, Your Honor, the State of Kansas appears through Assistant District Attorney Mark Brinkworth.
May it please the court, Lester Smith appears in person in custody via Zoom and by counsel Zach Anthony via Zoom.
All right. We are here set down for a sentencing. If I can go through the history of the case a little bit here. Back in February of this year, the parties appeared, and at that time, the defendant changed his plea from one of not guilty to guilty. The court inquired and accepted that, ordered a PSI, and set it for sentencing in March. Obviously, in March, by the time we were set, the pandemic had been in full force, and we ended up having to continue that hearing. We set it up for a Zoom conference in July, it looks like, and Mr. Anthony was able to communicate with his client, but his client did not appear for that Zoom hearing. So we changed it to an in-person hearing and continued it a couple of weeks. Again, I believe Mr. Anthony was able to communicate that to Mr. Smith, but Mr. Smith did not appear at that hearing. At that time, I issued a bench warrant and bond forfeiture, which stayed outstanding till earlier this month when Mr. Smith was picked up, and we set it for sentencing today. So we are prepared to go forward with sentencing today, and I've received and reviewed the PSI. The critical findings are as follows. The sole count of conviction is one of possession of methamphetamine, which is a severity level 5 non-person drug felony. The defendant's criminal history score was found to be that as C, as in Charles. That would leave him with a presumed sentence in the border box with a presumed range of 28, 30, or 32 months. If he has to do that time, he's eligible for 20% good time credit and subject to 12 months of post-release supervision. However, there is a special rule, that being number 9, of a crime committed while on felony probation, that would really take that presumption from one of a border box to no presumption at all. Again, if the defendant is granted probation today, it would be for a period of 12 months to community corrections. I would ask you first, Mr. Brinkworth, did you have an opportunity to read and review this PSI? Any additions, corrections, or challenges?
Judge, I have had a chance to review the PSI and I have no additions or corrections.
Mr. Anthony, same question.
Yes, Judge. I have an opportunity to review the PSI as well. With respect to Mr. Smith's criminal history score, I think all the parties have known all along about the Johnson County case, the attempted robbery, which is what makes him a criminal history score C. But certainly that was contemplated by Mr. Smith, by myself, and by Mr. Brinkworth at the time of plea, and is obviously a matter of public record. So we do believe that that criminal history is correct and that he is a criminal history score C.
All right. Mr. Smith, your lawyers tell me he went over this criminal history. In fact, it came as no surprise to any of you, but I would ask you, did you get a chance to go over that with your lawyer? Do you have any challenges to that criminal history finding?
No, Your Honor, not to the criminal history finding, but I haven't talked to my lawyer before since the last time we were trying to get this sentence going.
Right.
I haven't talked to him since then. So
all right.
I'm kind of
need a moment to do so.
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Anthony, I'm going to invite you and Mr. Smith into a breakout room so I can send you guys to like a private room where we can't hear you. You're going to have a screen pop up in front of you here, Mr. Smith, that invites you to join this room. I need you to accept it, and you and Mr. Anthony can go speak in private.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. You know what I haven't been able to do is to pause a live stream. You can stop it, you can restart it, but it starts a whole new thing. I don't find any way to pause it in the middle of it. So just you're all on notice. We are still live streaming. I was watching over lunch the documentary on the Challenger disaster. Have you caught any of that?
I have not.
Just talk about a pit in your stomach. Like the very first, of course they start off with the very first dramatic thing, and it's they're getting ready for launch and it takes off and it's go for throttle up, right? That's like the last thing you hear. And they show the guy in Houston who like takes over as soon as it's launched. And I think he's the one who says, go for throttle up, Challenger. And then he's just kind of looking at his screen and he looks at another screen. And then you see his eyes just go like that and they go to black after that. And that's kind of the start of the whole series. And you're just like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was, I made it to this episode where they call the night before, they know it's going to be sub-freezing temperatures overnight. And so they call the people who designed the solid rocket boosters and say, hey, we need you to give us your recommendations. So they all got in the room and like all the engineers said, nope, said, we've always been worried about cold weather effect on the O-rings and we don't, there's no data because we haven't launched in anything like this, but we advise against launching. And then one of the NASA guy, and he even talks on the documentary, and it's not like he's like, to my great shame, he's just like, well, I can't believe that that's your recommendation. What's the data to do that? And then another guy goes back and goes, that's that was such an inappropriate comment. He said, we've always been proved to us it's safe to launch. And now they were asking us, prove to us it's unsafe to launch. So they brought him back, and basically the management of the company said, why will this thing not work? And they're like, well, we can't say it won't work. We just don't know. And they're like, all right. And they got back on and said, we say go to launch. And they're like, all right. Yeah. And
those were the engineers for the lowest bidder. So
right. Yeah. Well, no, you know what the thing is the engineer, in fact, he said all the engineers kind of said, no, I wouldn't launch. And so the president said, well, I'm gonna take a poll. And he polled all the management people and not the engineers. And he got to the guy who's in charge of vice president, or he was the vice president in engineering. And he said that guy was, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this. And the president said, you need to take off your engineering hat and you need to put on your management hat. And the guy said, all right, go for launch. Yeah.
If I'm ever sitting on top of a couple 100,000 pounds of jet fuel, I want or rocket fuel. I don't want the decision to be made by poll.
Right. Yeah. No kidding.
I want someone to be like, absolutely, they can launch.
Yeah. It's a really well done documentary, and I don't know if you're old enough, Mark, how old were you when that happened?
I was in grade school, I think.
Yeah. I was a freshman in college.
You don't look it, Judge.
Huh? Yeah, right. It. I remember it was one of those days that I actually went to class and I was walking back down the hill over lunch hour, and another guy from my floor was coming up. He said, you hear about the Challenger? I go, what, it explode? And he's like, yes, it did. Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. I was talking with Mo yesterday about movies, and it's just amazing to me. I forget how much older than him I am.
Yeah.
Because I'm mentioning a movie and he's like, I've heard the name before. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Junior, we'll just talk later.
I'll tell you the funniest thing that made me feel old before I was old. When my son was about 6, we went to the kennel, the Humane Society, and adopted a dog.
Right.
We're standing in line to pay and do all that stuff, and there's this cardboard cutout of a collie, and there's a kid behind me who's like a high school guy, and I said, "Oh, look, Jed, it's Lassie." And he goes, "Who's Lassie?" And this kid goes, "That even makes me feel old."
Well, in your defense, when you were watching that, because you're younger than me, you that was in reruns. Because
No, I'm a year older than you.
oh, well, still, when I was watching it, those were like, reruns. That they
Yeah.
weren't like
They
the
weren't first run.
go around. Yeah. All right. All right. The defendant and his attorney have rejoined us. We're back on the record. Mr. Anthony, anything to add at this point?
Judge, I don't know that I am in a position to explain what Mr. Smith wants to address the court with. He has some concerns, and I would just ask that the court inquire about those.
All right. What would you like to know, Mr. Smith?
First of all, I'd like to apologize for showing up late to court on those times that I showed up late. And I'm inquiring about this because I have children that I have to take care of, Your Honor. And I really, like I was telling my lawyer, I really am not totally guilty on this charge. I was taking the short route of taking the probation to shorten, and not take a risk of going to like a trial or something like that. So, Your Honor, I'd just like the court to take into consideration that I will be a single parent of 3 because my wife, she's locked up. She's had a warrant for her arrest at this time. And Your Honor, I would like to to apologize and maybe.
Well, Mr. Smith, here's the deal. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with this case. And I don't know. I mean, at the point where you're at, there's nothing in the law that says, not only isn't there anything that says I have to give you probation or I have to deny you probation. There's really nothing in the law that says I should be looking one way or another and only go the other way if I'm convinced. It's really kind of up in the air. And I was interested in what everybody has to say today. Now, if you're telling me that you want to file a motion to withdraw your plea, then I would give you time to do that and not do this sentencing today, because your ability and the standard that I would use to let somebody withdraw their plea is much stricter after sentencing than it is beforehand. I don't know if that's what you want to do. I'm somewhat, I mean, when you started off with I don't feel I'm really guilty. I just took this to get probation. I do happen to have good notes of our plea hearing, and I kind of asked you all of those questions. Is anybody promising you a certain outcome? And you know that it's going to depend on your criminal history and whether or not you show up for court. It would also that I gave you the chance to tell me whether or not you're guilty of this. Look, all of that aside, if you want time to file a motion to withdraw your plea, then I'll give you time to do that. Otherwise, we would just proceed to sentencing today.
Well, okay. I'll proceed. I'll proceed with sentencing, sir.
All right. Look, I want you to know, and the reason I'm taking this, I'm not trying to talk you into anything in one way at all, but at the end of this hearing, I'm going to end up pronouncing a sentence. It may be something that you're very happy with. It may be something that you are not happy with. Okay. And I need you to, what I don't want to make sure that happen is you don't like the sentence I give you, and then you say, "Oh, I wanted to withdraw my plea." All right. So if you think you want to do that, you need to do it now because everything changes after you get sentencing done. Again, I'm not trying to talk you into it, tell you to do it. I'm just telling you that it's a critical decision that you're making at this point.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and you're ready to go forward.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so what started all this was my question to you is whether you had a chance to go over that criminal history and if you have any challenges to that.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. I will adopt the findings of the pre-sentence investigation for purposes of today's hearing. Mr. Anthony, I know it's a little bit unusual, but given the fact that this was a border box and with the special rule, a no presumption, I think I want to give you first crack on comments as to sentencing.
Judge, I will incorporate what is listed and what is said in the border box evaluation of my Heartland Rate Act. I know prior to going on the record that both the court and the prosecution were provided that. I don't need to read it to the court. You have it in front of you, but I will say what it says, which is that Mr. Smith has a long history of substance abuse, that he struggles to stay sober, that I think it could be an inference could be drawn that his showing up late and his sporadic attendance at court was substance abuse related. I think when we contemplated this plea agreement, we knew that. I don't want to speak for Mr. Brinkworth, but I think that was something that was on everyone's mind when we contemplated this agreement. And we crafted this agreement in a way that allowed him to go to Johnson County to finish the time that he owed there, precisely so that he could get the drug treatment on probation that we all thought he needed. That is what is listed in the substance abuse evaluation and was our goal all along. If Mr. Smith goes to prison here today, he'll get out in some number of months. He has a fair amount of credit. And when he gets out, he'll have the exact same problem he otherwise has. So the only hope for him to make a real change in his life is for him to get a chance at drug treatment. And for that reason, we would ask that the court find that he does meet border box criteria and assign him that probation. All
right, Mr. Brinkworth.
Judge, just leave it to your discretion.
All right. All right, Mr. Smith, you started when we talked before to tell me a little bit about your situation, but I want you to kind of start over and make sure that we make a good record of this, because this is your opportunity to tell me anything that you think that I need to know in order to decide how to sentence you today, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'm all ears.
Starting out, man, I got, sorry about that. Excuse me. I have 3 children and I have a wife, and she has a warrant for her arrest right now. And so like, no one will be there for the kids. I mean, I need treatment. I'll ask that much. I need treatment. I won't lie and say I'll be perfect here going forward, but I need treatment to help my children, to help myself, to help others around me. And today I would like to ask, I would like to ask you for for that help, for that treatment, and that probation to get a chance to stand on my own. You know what I mean, sir? I want a chance to make decisions on my own without, you know, drugs clouding my vision. You know what I mean? And with all due respect, I apologize for the times I showed up late. And for the times I didn't show up. And I would like a chance to be a sober, better person going forward here today.
All right. All right, thank you. Mr. Anthony, do your client know any legal reason why I should not now proceed to sentencing?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Well, Mr. Smith, I will tell you this, and I think you need to know this. You've made for me what was a real easy case into a hard one, right? Because if you showed up at any of your sentencings before this, I wouldn't have had to think twice about granting your probation. All right. You've made it a lot more difficult. But look, I understand the problems with addiction, right? And frankly, I am morally opposed to throwing people in prison because they are drug addicts, right? I don't, there's a number, A, I don't think it's fair. B, I don't think it works. So I bend over backwards not to send people into prison for being addicts. It really concerns me more so that you're not appearing and that you, as you said, you've got 3 kids at home whose mother's locked up, so you're really in charge of them. And you had to know, because I remember at our hearing from looking at my notes that you were told that failure to appear for one of your hearings would relieve the state from their obligations under the plea. In other words, they didn't have to stand silent. They could have got up and said, Judge, look, he ain't showing up for court. He isn't going to do his probation, send him to prison. But they didn't do that. But you took that risk. So let me ask you this. While you've been sitting in here and their mom's locked up, who's taking care of the kids?
My cousin, and she has 2 months to live. They gave her 2 months to live not long ago. And
right. How old are these kids? How old are these kids?
12, 10, and 8 years old, sir.
They going to school?
Yes, Your Honor. They're right now they're on tablets. You know, they're doing everything on tablets and everything.
So
and
when you get, if I give you probation, you get out of here and you got to go do 30 days in treatment or 28 days, whatever it is she going to watch your kids the whole time?
Oh yes, Your Honor. I have a couple of people that are willing to reach out and do a little help from me with my children, and you know, situate them, give them a place to stay, stuff to eat or whatever. I have everything figured out as far as my kids go on that.
Listen to me, Mr. Smith. You have, like I said, this would have been real easy back in July or August for us all to get together and me to go, here's your probation, good luck to you, and onward you go. You know, the fact that you're sitting there in jail is a product of the decisions that you were making. So look, I'm going to give you a break, but I need you to understand this. Most people who get probation, the first time they get in trouble with their probation, they come and see the judge, usually in custody, and they say, okay, give him a tier 1 sanction, give him 2 days in jail, and he's already been there, and send him back on probation. Well, if you're a border box or a no presumption, and I give you probation anyway, you're not entitled to that kind of stuff. So if we have to come back and you're not working your program, I'm not going to mess around, right? And I'm not going to listen to this excuse or that excuse. Now, given that, I think you hit on something. Well, I am not saying that to mean if you test dirty one time or anything like that, you're going to prison. This is what I'm saying. I expect you to get involved in that treatment that's recommended for you. I expect you to be successful in that treatment and move forward. I understand that there can be problems with relapses, right? I don't send people to prison for relapsing, but I have often sent people to prison for what they did after that relapse, right? Because if you relapse and you go, man, I'm working hard, I had this problem, I understand I need to get back in my treatment, figure out why I relapsed and try and keep it from happening again, then you're not going to go to prison for that. Okay. But if you relapse and you're like, well, I tried, but it's better than me and I can't get clean, I guess I'm going to stop reporting and stop going to treatment and just kind of keep using. Then you're going to give me no choice but to send you. You understand that?
That's right.
All right. Well, at this time, I'm going to make the finding that the non-prison sanction would serve defendant reformation, public safety better than prison sanction. There is an appropriate treatment program available for the defendant, and he is eligible for that treatment program. Therefore, I am going to apply those border box factors and do the following. The defendant will be sentenced to the Secretary of Corrections for the aggravated range of 32 months. If he has to do that time, he will be eligible for 20% good time credit, subject to 12 months of post-release supervision. Given the findings that I made under the border box, even though the special rule does remove that, I am going to use those as a reason to grant Mr. Smith's probation today. It will be for a period of 12 months to community corrections. A specific term of that probation will be that Mr. Smith engage in the treatment recommended from his evaluation and successfully complete that treatment, any aftercare and recommendations that flow from that. All right, let me look a little bit further here. Mr. Smith, when you get out, how is it that you make ends meet and care for your kids? Are you working?
Well, before I left, before I got picked up in Paola, Kansas, and I have a guy down there that had like 4 or 5 houses that he was remodeling, and I was helping him out doing that. So I do a lot of remodeling the houses, and I have immediate appointment to do that, but it would be out of town, and I'm not sure if I can make it there every day as a thing, but
Would you take your kids with you?
if I could, I mean, whatever it takes to make.
Miss Smith, it seems to me that I'm getting a little bit of mixed messages of, I was taking care of my kids and all of this, and then I was working out of town and I've got a job and it's coming out of town, but what about your kids? Oh, well, I don't know. And the lady who's taking care of them is not supposed to live more than 2 months, but I'm fine with her keeping the kids. Look, I don't know if you feel like you're getting over.
No.
I am going to stick with my recommendation here at the end, but I need you to know this. I'm going to let you out and put you on probation, but I won't have any qualms, and I'm not going to listen to my kids and all that if you just take off on this again. You understand me? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Because look, I do recall all of these things when you would call in and say, I'm on my way to court and it was court time. And then you call a half hour later and you say, I'm in Johnson County, I'm on my way. And you never appeared. And it was a big, giant game. And I don't know if you think after we hung up, oh, they believed me that I was there or going to be there. And I don't know if you're thinking today, oh, he believed me, I'm going to get out and do my treatment and take care of my kids and all of that. I'm not saying that. And I don't want you to walk out of here like I can talk these people out of anything, because right now I am as dubious as I can be about it. I'm going to give you a chance to prove me wrong, but I don't want you walking out of here going, I'm smarter than all of those people, and I'm going to do what I want to do, because you will regret that big time, because like I said, we won't mess around if that's what happens when you get out of here. I tell you what, I'm going to assess court costs and supervision fees because I don't see any, you clearly aren't disabled or anything like that. I'm going to waive your attorney's fees because I don't want to, you've got kids to take care of, you planning on taking care of, and I don't want to overburden you. But I will assess the bid's application fee. I don't think the database fee is required. He had a prior Kansas felony. The drugs weren't tested, were they, Mr. Brinkworth?
No, Judge.
All right, so there's no cost there. Look, I'm going to make it a very minimal order. I'm going to order him to pay $50 a month until he's fully employed. That should be something he should be able to do, and give him some time to try and get on his feet. And then he can work out if he wants to get paid off in time to get off probation at a normal time, he can work on that. I again, Mr. Smith, I need you to know this. All right. I'm giving you probation today, but it's not because you convinced me that you're a good guy and that you're all you want to do is go take care of your kids and all of that. Look, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying that there's enough in front of me that I can't just swallow that whole. Prove it to me. I'll be more than happy. I'll come out and shake your hand. I'll apologize for ever having doubted you if you prove that to me. All right. But I need you to understand this as you get out of here today, that if you take off, if you walk away from treatment, and just go back to your lifestyle, that eventually we'll catch you, you know that, and then you're going to be in front of me and you're just going to go. Now, on the other hand, you're engaged in treatment, you get out, you're working, you're doing your aftercare, whatever meetings you have to do and all that, and you have a relapse, and they bring you back in front of me, I ain't sending you for that. Because what I want you to do is get back into treatment and make sure it doesn't happen a second time. So I think we're pretty clear where we're at here. And I think that's everything I need to sentence you to. I do need to give you the following advisements. You have 14 days from today to appeal anything you don't like about your sentence. You also may have the right to seek expungement after a period of time following successful completion of probation. As a convicted felon, it's prohibited for you to own or possess a firearm and certain kind of deadly cutting instruments like dirks, daggers, switchblades, basically knives that could be considered deadly weapons. Part of your probation is to complete drug treatment, follow the recommendations thereof. With all of that, Mr. Brinkworth, how many days credit you got for him?
82 days, including today, Judge.
82 days. You agree with that, Mr. Anthony?
Yes, Judge.
All right, he'll be granted that jail time credit. Anything else I failed to cover today?
Judge, I don't recall if there's time left on his Johnson County case or not, but if so, does his sentence run consecutive to that?
Okay, good.
He got anything left on Johnson County?
Judge, he's on post release, I believe, on Johnson County. So I think by rule, it would have to be run consecutive to that.
Right. By operation of law, it's required that I run this consecutive to any sentence that hasn't completely expired. And so it is so ordered.
Yeah.
All right. Other things for our record today?
I believe that's it, Judge.
Nothing for me, Judge.
Good luck to you, Mr. Smith. I hope we don't see each other again in this kind of place.
All right, thank you, sir.
You bet. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm ready to learn how to